Today I am here with a good friend that I've gotten to know over the last few months, Jay Irvine. Jay, I like to say the Ridgewood Condo Association. There's murmurs that you are the guy there. That's your hometown, right?
Middlebury, yeah.
But you live in the Ridgewood Condo Association.
Yes, my
Unbelievable.
little territory of real estate. Yeah.
Jay is an agent with Showcase Realty, and we met a few months ago through the grapevine, I like to say. Super excited to have you on. Talk a little bit about your family, background, interesting story growing up. Some hardships, some really cool stuff too.
Moving
around.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about relationship with your family, your brother.
Yep.
What you guys both do now. You guys are always very close. And then talk about what you're up to in the real estate space and where you're headed.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite a ride. You'll see. I mean, very diversified background as a kid growing up. That's for sure. So
I love it. So let's start with that.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? Because you've got a little hint of Mexico in you.
Yeah, little Mexicano con yo me quiero.
Where'd you grow up?
Originally born in Canada. That's where all my family is from.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had a small family. My dad was one of 5. One of his sisters moved to the U.S. when they were young, but everybody else was in Canada outside of the Greater Toronto area. And I was very close with both my mom's parents and my dad's parents. My dad was the youngest, and his father had my dad when he was 50. So by the time I was 5, 8 years old, my grandfather was 90. So there was a big difference between my dad's side of his parents and then my mom's. They were in their 60s when I was young, so I could do different things.
Very
with them.
different.
Yeah. So grew up in Canada.
Where's your dad's dad from?
Oakville. Yeah, Canada. So Winnipeg area, so more on the western side. And then, the eastern side. And then they moved to the Greater Toronto area. And then everything kind of in Ontario revolves around the Greater Toronto area. That's like the hot spot.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Oakville, which ironically is where my office is now in real estate.
It's Oakville, Canada.
Oakville, Oakville, Ontario.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So I thought you were talking about Connecticut. It's so funny.
But my office now in real estate is in Oakville, Connecticut. Yep. So I'm one of 2. Me and my little brother is 3 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. We started our journey in Oakville. My father, he started his career working for Timex, the watch company, right out of the gate. He spent 23 years of his career there, basically from leaving University of Toronto, going right to Timex, entry-level salesperson, and worked his way up. And he, in the mid-90s, he got his first big promotion to CEO of Mexico and Central America. So we just uprooted and went to Mexico. And that was
How old were you at the time?
I was 5.
Yeah.
So I was 5 to right about 10. So those years I was really able to kind of retain a lot. My brother doesn't really remember
Taylor's
much. 3 years,
3 years younger.
Yeah,
Okay,
so he was about turning 3 when we went there.
Yeah.
And that was just a complete, it's third world country technically.
In the 90s.
In the 90s, a little bit safer than it is now, or much safer. Now just with the cartel and everything, it's more dangerous. I lived in Mexico City, Mexico. So that was, Mexico City, at least at the time, was the largest city in the world for population.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I don't know the stat now, but then it was considered the largest city as far as people in there. So, Mexico City, Mexico, right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up there? What was life like?
Different. You connect. I went to private schools.
English private schools?
English, English and then Spanish speaking. I had to immediately get tutors to learn Spanish to be able to connect with people. And the people you made friends with most people were expats there, just like my father. And so those were really my friends, all similar situation. They were from the US or the UK, and they were living there on an assignment or a big promotion type of thing. But the experience there was just, it was nuts. I mean, we had bodyguards and chauffeurs. We had, a maid at the house 24/7. Dad was always on the road. Our house had, 15-foot walls that surrounded it with barbed wire, electric gates to get in. Security was important there. You did not want to be flashy driving around in a nice car, because what people would do if they see, oh, it's a nice car, let's follow them to their house. Like, kidnapping was big there. That was like a big thing for us kids. We had to we were trained on and had to pay attention to, because people, blonde hair, green eyes, blue eyes, they like that. And ransom. Great movie reference, Man on Fire with Denzel Washington. If you ever see it, I recommend watching it. That takes place in Mexico City. Same exact, very similar situation.
Him and the little girl?
Yes.
Unbelievable movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yes.
When you say Dad was always on the road, what do you mean by that?
So he traveled. So even though he was CEO of Mexico and Central America, he was just always traveling to different countries, overseeing everything. So I remember every year between right after the 20th of January till about the end of March, he was gone. And he would start usually in Canada, go down to the US, then go to Mexico, then down to Central America, then over to the UK, Russia, Germany, Philippines, Japan, China, and then back. So it would be my mom, me, my brother, my mom for 2 months pretty much. And then he would do 2 weeks at a time stints throughout the year, but he was always gone for about 2 months out of the year when he would travel the whole world pretty much right after, numbers came out for the new year. So
wow.
Yeah.
How did he work his way up in the business?
He started in sales.
Yep.
Built really good relationships with upper management. He excelled, was always, top performer, and just a yes man. I think in sales, especially if you're working for a corporation, you have to have that yes mentality if you want to move up quickly. And that's really what he did.
As in, if you're asked to do something, you do it.
Yeah. Hey, we're thinking about, sending you here. What do you think about it? And a lot of people, I get it. People don't want to move. They're happy where they are. He said, I'll do it. You know? And that's why we uprooted. I mean, that was our first big move there.
And Timex is a watch corporation, right?
Timex, the watch corporation, which their headquarters is here in Connecticut.
Yep.
Middlebury, which I think they're moving to Shelton. But yeah, their headquarters was here. So he knew his end game was probably going to be here if he was going to continue to move up the ladder. But I mean, I remember at one point we were going to move to the UK. We were going to.
So you're in Mexico. What happens after Mexico? 10 years old, where do you go?
So Mexico, my dad gets his next promotion to be CEO of Canada, Mexico, Central America. So we moved back to Canada. Same town I left.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So we went back there for 2.5 years.
Yep. So until you're 13 or so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'm right about 13. And then my dad gets his next big promotion. And
so going back to Canada, life changed at all? Was it back to normal? Did you know the same kid? I did.
I well, so,
you didn't really know anybody.
No, I didn't.
When you left.
I had my original best friend was still in the same town that I moved back to, and I ended up going to school with him. But we didn't really connect. Again, when I moved back, we weren't so close. I made new friends. It wasn't actually until I moved out of here that I reconnected when I moved to the US.
Way.
Yeah. Yep. But Canada is when I got back to Canada. I started playing ice hockey. Played soccer, ice hockey. I was a big swimmer growing up. Was very good at it. I probably should not have quit, but I wanted to play hockey. And so I went back to Canada. My neighbor had the biggest Harley Davidson dealership in Canada. He was a big Harley guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So so he did very well. You know, and again, my dad traveled a lot. We were very family oriented. Like my parents taught me like very big values growing up, and that was like be respectful, be polite,
Yep.
you know, shake people's hands, you know, yes, please, thank you. So when my dad was home, he tried to do everything he could to, you know, be with us and do activities. And we went on family trips and stuff a lot, but, you know, he was definitely traveling, and it was just me, my mom, and my brother, and my mom kind of ran the household. And I remember when we moved back to Canada, my mom tried to bring our maid Ermelinda there.
No way.
We tried to get her citizenship. She came back and forth for 6 months twice, and we couldn't end up doing it. But because she had lived with us since we were kids, I mean, that was, you know, quite the experience, like I said. And then, you know, my dad gets a phone call. Hey, we want you to be senior vice president for the world of sales, and you got to go to Connecticut. And I remember every time my parents would say, like when we were going to move, well, they always got us something like a dog right before it or a cat to butter us up. And then we would sit down and my dad would be like, so, you know, how do you feel about moving to Mexico? Or how do you feel about going to the U.S.? And I'd be like, no, screw you. Like, I'm not going. I'm staying here with Bob. You guys can go. And then he'd be like, well, you don't have a choice. yeah, you're coming with me. You know?
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, so, you know, but he did say, this is the last move.
When he said Connecticut?
When he said Connecticut, yeah. He had turned down, like I said, going to the UK. My uncle was actually out in the UK. My dad's brother, he was very high up at the Energizer company. So we were a little excited about going there, but he knew that was only going to be a short stint out there. So he did give a little bit of pushback as far as when I'm saying he was a yes man, because it was just like uprooting us. It would have been like every year and a half to a different country. But he had a really good mentor that basically every time this guy got a promotion, my dad replaced his position.
No way.
So yeah, so he got, you know, senior vice president, world sales for Timex. We moved here.
Who was the guy above your dad? What did he go to? Or
he retired. Yeah, so that was, you know, my dad reported directly to the CEO of, that was his direct report. And we moved out here in 2000, right after the millennial year. Yes, beginning of 2000. I remember that because shortly after that, I cracked my head open the day before 9/11, and I was home the day of 9/11 watching everything on TV. I wasn't in school.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what was that like? Because that was 2 days ago.
Yeah. I'll never forget. My mom came upstairs. I was watching TV. She's like, the plane just went into the World Trade Center. Turn on the TV. And, you know, she's like, I got to go get your brother, blah, blah, blah.
How old are you? 13?
That time I was, 13. Yep. So, you know, moving to the U.S. was different. At that time, I had a strong Canadian accent. You know, people like to poke fun at me at the time. You know, the girls liked it. But, you know, it was, that was the final move when we moved to Southbury, Connecticut, because Middlebury was right next to it. And, you know, I went to Pomperaug High School. And
you came in as a freshman, right?
So I moved in. It would have been, I probably was 12 because I moved here in the end of 7th grade.
Gotcha.
So end of middle school, started freshman year at Pomperaug. You know, that's when I made the full jump from trying to do a different sport every season to being like, all right, I'm all in on hockey. Started picking up tennis and then golf on like the side.
Yep.
And, you know, played for double A teams in the off season and high school hockey. High school was awesome. I mean, we had really good sports when I was there. Pomperaug football at the time was, you know, we won state championship, I think 2 years in a row.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, the program, might not have been 2 years. It was definitely one, but I think we lost maybe the second year. But the program was top. Yeah. Now it's not so good. And I feel like just with like different generations, people have different builds. Or, you know, like when I was there, I remember when I was a freshman, sophomore, like the seniors were 6'3", massive, where, you know, the biggest guy when I was a senior was 6'2", strong, but not like 6'5". Like,
Yeah.
You know, the sizing just changed over the years. But
Is that just Southbury? It's a few different towns.
so Southbury's joined. So what happens? So it's a regional school.
Yep.
Southbury's part of Middlebury as
Yep.
far as so there's separate elementary and middle schools.
Yep.
One in Middlebury, one in Southbury, and then they join at Pomperog.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Just those two towns.
Just those two towns.
Okay.
So you're like, you know, Middlebury's got their own thing. Even though I lived in Southbury, I was closer to Middlebury, so I went to the Middlebury
Oh, no way.
Yes, elementary and middle schools. Well, middle school. And then, you know, hey, we're going to high school. We get to meet all these Southbury guys. Oh, who's better? Middlebury, Southbury,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, I mean, it was quite the experience. And then, you know, I'll never forget, it was junior year. I just turned 16, and I'm going to visit my friends in Canada. My parents take me and my brother to the airport, Bradley, and you know, my dad is, you know, we say goodbye to my dad and my mom. Okay, we're going to see our best friends. We're so excited.
Who's going? You and Taylor?
Yeah, my brother Taylor.
Okay.
Yep. And so we're hopping on a plane, and I get over the loudspeaker. They're like, Jameson or Taylor, Irvine, go to the nearest security person. And I'm like, okay. So I walk over, and they're like, hey, somebody's on the line for you. And I'm like, all right. I pick up, and it's my neighbor, and he's like,
You're still at
hey,
the airport?
I'm still at the airport waiting to board. And he's like, hey, an accident happened. He's like, your dad was involved in a motorcycle accident. And I'm like, okay, well, we still want to go to Canada, not thinking how severe this could be.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't think you should go. He's like, your mom's not with me right now. I'm going to come pick you up. So, okay. So he came and picked us up, and we go home, and we find out that my dad had an injury. They think a deer clipped him going down. He was right around the corner from our house.
Describe the scene, because you told me this before. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, so they measure how fast you're going by how far the distance of the bike is to the body. Because if you're going super fast and you crash, the bike usually skids off, right? So the bike was very close to his body.
Yeah.
And he had the accident on the road that we live on, which they say most of the car accidents that happen are within 2 miles of where you live.
Wow.
Because people usually feel
Safe.
Yeah, they let
alert.
go. They're not exactly. But he just took a
Well, he
dip.
wasn't wearing a helmet.
Wasn't wearing a helmet. Biggest thing.
Yeah.
He did normally, but he was just going to get gas. Didn't think.
Yeah, he's going down the street.
Joyride, quick ride.
Be back in 5 minutes. Why didn't he need a helmet?
Right. So he
And doesn't even hit a tree, and doesn't get hit by a car.
No.
A deer runs out in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
He could have been alert as he wanted, but like you said, maybe he wasn't.
Right. And he was found unconscious. We were lucky that a nurse was the person that found him, so was able to at least give him the best care until the ambulance got there. And so once we arrived, he was in the hospital for about 3 days, and he was in an induced coma, which basically they put you into a coma.
Yeah.
He's in so much pain that if they were to bring him out of it, he would probably die. So he was in a coma. His head was the size of a watermelon because of how bad it was swelling. And they were like, hey, we have to monitor it for 2 or 3 days. This is normal. Let's just see what happens. So things kind of got better. And then day 3, we get a phone call, or my mom gets a phone call, and it's, you have to be down here in 10 minutes. This is life or death. You have to sign some forms, etc. So my mom's freaking out. You got to get in the car. We go to Waterbury, which is where he was. I got very lucky that a good friend of mine had a friend who was a brain surgeon that grew up in Waterbury, and he traveled around the world and did surgeries for pretty high profile people, but he happened to be back home. And a friend of mine kind of called in a favor saying, hey, this is the situation. Can you go and perform the surgery? And he said, yeah, I'll do it. So we go there and we find out your father's brain is swelling. It's the pressure.
The
doctor, yeah. The pressure is just pushing in on his brain. And now it's a matter of time of life and death because his brain is just going to be mush. And they had to basically cut his skull open. And this guy had terrible bedside manner, I remember. He was like, can't promise I'm going to save your father, but can't promise, but I'll do the best I can. I'm a good doctor, and the job here is to keep him alive and to keep his brain functioning the best way. So he went in, they remove your skull, about the size of my hand on the side of my head.
God,
yeah.
Jesus.
And then they sew your skin back over, and then they put your skull in like whatever liquid, milk, whatever, for months. Yeah. We'll see. So if you ever lose, you raw milk, yeah. Like if you ever lose a tooth, if a tooth comes out and you're supposed to put it in milk.
You're right.
Yeah. So I don't think they were his skull was sitting in milk for months, but whatever they put it in, but they sew your head back up to relieve the pressure. So at that point, they were able to see that the brain swelling had affected part of his brain.
No way.
Yeah. So so at that point, he stayed in recovery at the hospital for about another 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then he was sent to Gaylord, which is up in Cheshire. That's a rehab facility. Mm. And at that point, once we went there, we realized life wasn't going to be the same. My father had to learn how to walk, talk, eat.
Couldn't walk?
Couldn't walk, no. He was legs up, for probably 3 months, not walking. And I remember when we went to see him in Gaylord, he was in a bed that was in a cage. And because they didn't want him to fall over or try to get up. And he was starting to get some of his skills back. Yeah. But, they had to teach him to walk, talk, and eat. And so he had a traumatic brain injury as a result of that. Was never going back to corporate work.
Wow.
Ever again. Life was different. I remember my grandfather, my mom's father, that came to help. He said, you're going to be the man of the house now. Your father's not going to be the same by the way it looks. So how they judge when you get a traumatic brain injury and you have a recovery is most of your recovery is within the first 2 years. So if you dramatically bounce back in the first 2 years, there's like a lot of hope that you'll be normal. But if it's a slow recovery, you're probably not. I'm not saying you're never going to, but it's really the first 2 years that matter. And by the end of year 2, he was walking. He came home, but he had a speech problem. I try to compare it to like a child learning how to talk, where like they're saying the sentences, but only certain parts of the words are kind of making sense, and you're putting them together.
Yeah, you're piecing it.
Yeah. So, I finished out my high school. My father was home.
You went to college, right?
I did, yes. So I went to UCONN.
Yep.
So I went to UCONN.
In stores?
In stores, yeah. Yep. So went to stores.
What'd you study there?
I started in econ.
Yep.
And my senior year, I got into the School of Business because econ is not in the School of Business. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to do I got 1 year left. I got 2 years of classes to do in the School of Business, but I really wanted to go into the School of Business because it's a great school at UConn. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I want to do finance because I was already in econ. I had a year of econ. And so I decided I was going to do summer classes. I wasn't going to graduate because it was really going to push me back a whole year. Yeah. I was supposed to graduate that following spring originally if I was in econ, and I switched to business, so now I was going to delay it another year. Yeah. But I ended up doing it in 6 months. So
December?
I graduated in December, yes.
Yep.
I lived at UConn a full extra year.
Oh.
But so I was in finance, and then I realized I don't really want to manage people's money. It's not really, I like sales. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to switch to marketing. And
in the School of Business.
In the School of Business, yes. So I switched, I got out after the first semester being in the School of Business, I'm like, I don't like finance. I don't want to take all these tests and everything. Yeah. I was not a great standardized tester. I got good grades, but I had to study. Yeah. But I did procrastinate a lot, so that probably had a lot to do with it. But I switched to marketing with a concentration in sales, less on the advertising side. I got a minor in econ because I had a year of econ classes. And, you know, at UConn, I mean, it was great. I got to see Kemba Walker win the the national championship. Yeah, I was there for that. And then, you know, a year after, Shabazz Napier, or 2 years later, won the championship. And my brother was there at the time.
Oh, no way.
My brother followed me to UConn, came to UConn. So that was cool. I got to be at school with him for a year.
Unreal.
So that was awesome. You know, played hockey at UConn, not D1, but
Yeah,
they had a great program. Started playing basketball, you know, did any type of, you know, intramural sport up there that I could because it was very competitive. All the intramural sports you were playing like at least 2 or 3 times a week. So it was fun. It wasn't like, oh, once every other week type of thing. I mean, it is UConn. So, yeah, so I graduated and started my career at Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What would you do there? And where was it?
So
Enterprise?
Enterprise is a global company.
Yep.
They're family owned.
Oh, what? No way.
Family owns it. Yes.
What's the
So,
name? Any idea?
The family, the Taylor company, the Taylors.
Where are they from?
St. Louis.
Cool. Okay.
The father that started it was a air pilot. Started the business. His son Andrew Taylor took it over. So they're famous for their management training program. I don't know if you've ever seen Step Brothers?
Yes.
Oh, dude, of course.
Yeah, you remember the very end where he's like, I'm going to do what's sensible. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to get a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car because they give you the tools to be your own boss.
Unreal. No, I don't remember that. That's funny.
Yeah, so it's in the wine scene at the very end.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to do what's sensible. Yeah. So I started there. So Enterprise's program is everybody starts as a management trainee. You start everyone starts in the main program, and then you work your way into different avenues. So I started as a management trainee, but and I guess I should side note this. I did intern there for a year.
Yep.
I was at UConn during the summer.
Yep.
So I decided to go there full time, and I moved up. And you're asking where I worked. So they have branches almost like every other town.
Yeah.
So I worked in Willimantic, East Hartford, Watertown, Vernon, Bradley Airport, New Britain, Putnam, Connecticut, Norwich, Connecticut, Oxford, Naugatuck. I said yes to everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. And that moved me up very quickly. So I, became an assistant manager, then a branch manager. And when you get to a branch manager at Enterprise, you've kind of like really done a good amount there. Corporations love poaching Enterprise employees because they just have a very good training program, long hours, you're cleaning cars in a suit and tie. Yeah, it's insane. And you learn how to manage a whole business. Like when I was a branch manager or even assistant manager, I was either going to light the place on fire or make it money. Yeah, it was, it was quite the experience, but I learned so much. I mean, I learned literally how to run a multi-million-dollar business, so that was cool. I had people working for me that I was training, like right out of college. This is how you sell. This is what you do. And, from there, I loved the company, but it was exhausting. I didn't really want to. I decided I wanted to get out of it. And so from there, I said, I'm going to quit. And
what was it like being a branch manager, training people? What kind of, how many people did you train? What were the skills you got there?
So how it worked there was you were at an office, and the more cars you manage, the bigger the office, right? So the more cars, the more the employees. So you go from an assistant manager in a small office to an assistant manager in a big office, then a branch manager in a small office to a branch manager in a big office, right? So from there, you're managing.
What's a small office? Oh, sorry.
Small office is 3 to 5 employees. Big office could be anywhere from 10 to 20. Like Bradley Airport's got 40.
Wow. How many cars are there?
A big office would be about 200 to 250 cars. At Bradley, there was over 1,000.
Wow.
So you would start managing. You would usually have. They always had somebody that was a very good salesperson there that had been there for a bit, and then you'd get new people that would come in. The turnover was very high because Enterprise liked to hire. They went after college athletes is really what they like to target because they wanted competitive people. And it's a very competitive company, and they would hire anybody from any background. You didn't have to be in business, like people were wanted to teach, etc. But they had to be competitive. And then you'd go in, and my job was to train them from start to finish on how to sell, how to upsell. I definitely say that gave me the foundation on like customer service, treating people well, going above and beyond for just my my business skills. But then on top of that, you're managing the business. You're in charge of marketing. You're sending your employees out for fun runs to go bring donuts to corporate accounts, and you're sitting in on corporate meetings when you're trying to get corporate accounts. And then on top of that, you're trying to upsell at the office. And the whole point of Enterprise is if all the cars are on the lot, you're not making money. So it's utilization, getting them on the road. So you either run tight or you don't make any money. And if you have too many cars, you got other branches calling you saying, hey, can I get those 3 cars you have? Or you got somebody coming in at 5 o'clock or 2 people coming in for a Suburban, and you got none in your lot, and you're panicking throughout the day, and it's a holiday weekend to put people into these large SUVs, and there's just none anywhere. I mean, that's where you get the people that expect a Suburban, and they get like maybe a Tahoe or like a Ford Explorer. It's got 3 rows, but it's not a Suburban, right? So, that was a great company. I moved up to branch manager in 9 months. I was always at best of the best. One thing that they liked was when I got into being a branch manager, I didn't let my personal sales skills go. Like a lot of people just focused on the business and stopped selling on their individual numbers. I was doing both, which definitely helped. And so I decided I wasn't happy there anymore. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Should I go into insurance? I was thinking about that. So I quit. And then I started exploring the medical field, and I wanted to get into pharmaceutical sales. And when I got into pharmaceutical sales, the interesting thing about it is the hardest thing is just breaking into it when you've never been in the industry.
How'd you break in?
Kept applying.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, most of the criteria says, required pre-pharma experience. So I found a company that liked to hire new people with no experience, and they were out of Atlanta, Arbor Pharmaceuticals. And so when I say I wanted to go into pharma, I wanted to go into either medical device or pharma, and it was like whatever one I could get into first. Medical device is even harder to break into, especially with no background in it. So I kept applying, and I interviewed in Stamford for the Western Connecticut or Fairfield County and Westchester, New York territory. Aced the interview. Guy loved me, and started working there. It was awesome. I started selling a high blood pressure medication and an African American heart failure medication. It was a Darby and a Darby Chlor, and then Bidal. And so I started working for them, and it was awesome. The culture there is like work hard, kind of play hard. Now, that being said, I got into the industry where they had done a big shift in how companies can spend their money. Back in like the 90s and early 2000s, that's where you see all the movies where they're making all this money, sending doctors out to ski trips and courtside tickets. So they came out with this law, the Sunshine Act, that the only money you can spend is just for food and liquor, essentially. Now, that's not to say high-performing reps weren't spending their own money, but to do it. But there was a big change on how you could spend, and the only way you were able to really sell your drug was by booking a lunch and learn with the practice. And What I didn't like about pharma at the time is like you would get doctors that appreciated you, and then you would get some that just did not. You were just another rep.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were times I spent $2,000 for a lunch for a large practice because, a cardiologist, doctor wouldn't even come talk to me. Yeah. They'd be like, oh, he's sorry, he can't make it. Thanks for lunch. Goodbye. So that bothered me. But I was traveling. I was growing the territory. And the drug that I was selling, I said, was a African-American heart failure medication and a high blood pressure medication. And you give samples to doctors, and then they would try it. And if their patients responded well, they'd call you and be like, hey, this was great. I want to order more. The thing about pharma is like literally like one or two doctors that really see how well your drug can perform can really make your whole career.
No way.
Yes. You'll see some reps out there, literally 2 doctors make them their numbers, et cetera. I'm not saying that's how it is for everybody, but there were reps that were like that. And it was great. I learned a lot, but I did see at the time, if you look at somebody that's in the pharma field, if you kind of look at their LinkedIn, they bounce around jobs left and right. And I'll never forget this. So we got a phone call. It's a national call for the whole company. It doesn't matter what division you're in, because there were other drugs in different divisions that I didn't sell. They're like, hey, we just want everybody to get on a call tomorrow. We have an announcement to make. So I get on that call, and they're like, okay, hey, everybody, if you're selling this drug effective tomorrow, you're laid off. And that was like 75% of the company, because the division I came in, we just acquired this drug. They were growing the program, but there was a big heavy hitter on the other side of the company. And the reason why they did that is the drug went generic. When generic drugs come out, the brand names suffer. So we were a smaller pharma company, and they ended up laying off, like 75% of the company.
Did anybody see it coming?
No. I mean, upper management knew, but district managers that were laid off, they moved some people over that were really good, but I was safe. But they were like, yeah, turn your car in on Monday. You get 3 months severance, and good luck.
Wow.
Yeah, do not go to your doctors. They don't want you to be a poison pill. We don't want to see you out in the field. We're tracking everything. So that kind of opened up my eyes to just, the turnover, how things can change, the job security. So one of my old bosses at Enterprise, he worked for Philips in their dental device sales division. He's like, hey, I got a territory over in Providence, Rhode Island. Would you be interested in interviewing? I'm like, yeah, sure. His name was Joe. He was a great boss. I learned a lot from him. He went to UCONN, and we ended up, I met him, and he's like, why do you want to be in pharma? Come into the medical field, which is really where I wanted to get into. Because in medical sales, they really don't like to bring over pharma reps once you're like in the field for longer than like 3 years, because you build bad habits. It's a different way of selling.
Really?
Yes. Pharmaceutical sales versus the medical field, you're pharmaceutical sales, you're dropping off a lot of literature, and you're talking the benefits, but when you get into medical, there's a lot more of a presentation. My lunch and learns in medical, where I had the whole staff sitting, including the doctor. I had my PowerPoint.
You have to educate. You have to be a little bit sharper of a salesperson.
Yes.
Versus the other one's probably more relationship based.
Yes. Yeah. Both. But yeah, you
like
are
transactionals with pharma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time in my industry, they were the practices were purchasing orders from me, versus the doctors aren't. They're just writing scripts.
Yeah.
So it's a little different game. I focused in like the cosmetic side of like teeth whitening, oral health care, which was a great company. I moved to Providence, Rhode Island. I lived in Newport for a bit. I lived in Pawtucket. Awesome experience in my my late 20s. And then I was 26, and my dad.
How long did you do dental sales for?
3.5 years.
So you were in Rhode Island for 3.5 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Did you like Providence?
Loved it. Yeah, I like Rhode
small
Island.
city.
It is. It's a small city. It's kind of boring during the summer because the colleges that are around there's a lot less people. I was younger, but then you go down to like Newport, Jamestown, like that's the place to be. Love Newport.
Yeah.
I love Rhode Island. I mean, I would love to have like a home there, like near the ocean at some point. And so
You said your dad.
Oh, yes. So my father, going back to my father, he never really fully recovered.
Yeah.
He was able to, lightly talk. He could drive, which was great. He golfed. I got to actually spend more time with my dad for these following 10 years than I would have probably if he was still working for a corporation. So I got to know him, but he was a different person. There was, dad pre-accident, and then there was like Doug, which was just a different person. Two different people. So I never really got to grow up having that father figure that you grow up to be a man and get to know your dad. It was different.
Yeah.
I've always been envious of people that had close relationships with their father, and I was close with my dad, but it was just on a different
He was a different
level.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my dad he was getting a little sick for about a couple weeks, and my mom took him to the doctor, and they're like, yeah, you got a cold, and I remember I was home one weekend, and he's like, yeah, my legs hurt, blah, 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 and I'm like, okay, well, just go to the doctor, etc. And a week later, I call my brother, and I'm like, hey, how's Dad doing? He's like, he's good. I had breakfast with him, but, he's back in bed. And I'm like, still? Like, we're going on 2 weeks. And he's like, yeah, he's been asleep. I just had a weird feeling in my stomach. And so I said to my roommate, I'm like, I got to go home. I just want to go check out my dad. So I drive from Rhode Island home. I get to my house, I beeline it upstairs to my parents' bedroom, and my dad's in bed. And I walk over, and I'm like, hey, Dad. And he looks over at me, and he's like purple.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And he gets up, and I'm like, hey, get up. And he gets up, and he's like, I'm like, I go to my brother. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like, he's breathing heavy. How did you not notice this morning, right? And my brother says he wasn't like that. So we get him in the car. We take him to the walk-in clinic really quick, and they're like, hey, something's up. We need an ambulance to take him to the hospital right now. So the ambulance comes. He goes to the hospital. Fortunately, passed an hour and a half later. Yeah.
No way. Oh, my God. What was it?
He had a pulmonary embolism, so that is that's when you're
Doesn't sound good.
No, your arteries clog near your lungs.
Oh my gosh.
So, and he died. They can pump basically thinners into your arteries. It was like too late.
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
point. I mean, he was in the OR in the ER, and he was pulling off his oxygen mask because he thought that he was trying to breathe, and he thought pulling that off would help, but it wasn't, and he died about within an hour.
Crazy.
So that was boom. Okay, Dad's gone, and if I didn't go home, he would have been dead in the bed about an hour later anyway.
Yeah.
So it's weird how things line up.
Dude, crazy.
Just
oh my God.
Weird gut in my stomach, and that happened, but I got to say goodbye to him. So and then at that point, about 6 months later, I was thinking, okay, I love sales.
Yeah.
I like.
Did you go back to Rhode Island after that? Okay.
I did. I went back for about 8 months, and I knew I always liked kind of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I knew I could sell. Every company I was at, I was always in presidents clubs, top sales, everything in the trip. So I'm like, okay, I'm great at building relationships. And I like working for myself, really. What can I do? And I'm like, real estate seems pretty interesting. Now, this is 2018, very beginning, and nobody was really in it. Everybody that I knew that was in it was like my friend's parents.
Yeah,
right?
Older people.
Yes. No younger people really in it. And so I quit my job and moved back home. Called my boss, said, hey, I'm sorry, but I really want to do this. And from what I was told, I either got to be all in full time to really progress in real estate. And so I quit and I moved back home. I took the test, took about 8 months off in that process.
Yeah.
And took my test, and then got into real estate. I learned, I wanted to be a mentor working with somebody that was successful. And I interviewed at 5 different companies, and I found Showcase, which is where I'm at, because I really liked my broker. He was younger. Well, the father who owned it was older, but his son was kind of was the apprentice to kind of take over everything.
Yep.
Very successul.
Yeah, such a good guy.
John.
Such a good guy.
He sold over 100 houses in a year.
Yep.
And I was very focused on training as well, because training is important. Just in sales, that really helps. And I kept asking people, tell me about your training program. Tell me about your training program. And it's funny because I interviewed at a company, and I was planning to work there, smaller company, I won't say. And I was planning to work there, and I asked the broker, tell me about your training program. And he fumbled that answer. And he didn't know really what to say. He's like, if you have questions about a contract, somebody will be here to help you. And I basically, he said to me, if you're looking for like a corporate kind of feel with somebody that can train better, Showcase, which I'm so surprised he said this. He was like, Showcase is right down the road. So I got out of the interview, called over to Showcase to John Donato Sr., who he's now passed, but he was the owning broker there. And I said, hey, I'm interested in working here. I've come from a sales background. I'm pretty aggressive. And he goes, meet at my office in 30 minutes. So I drove from that interview over to his and signed up with Showcase.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, which is where I've been my career now. So the acting broker at the time, he passed, unfortunately, in 2021. John, who you met, is now
his son,
the broker. So, it's been a wild ride with different careers. Just
how do you like real estate?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, my friends say, "Oh, you were cut out for this." It's a relationship business, and I think that goes down to kind of the fundamentals of how I was brought up. And we talk about the countries I moved from, and like I was always being thrown in with, hey, you got to go meet new people and you got to get them to like you.
Yeah.
And what I've learned about real estate is, everybody has their own service that they like to do.
Yeah.
And everybody does business a different way, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you're building relationships with people, like it's all about building relationships. And the big performers, they're very good at getting people to trust them, which is important in business, right? People want to do business with people they like, right? And so, if you have a good product or a good service and you're representing them the right way, you can grow exponentially. And you'll see that, you work with a ton of different realtors and everybody has a different style, but what works for them works. But I think the nature of the game is relationships.
Yeah.
You're very good at that.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
I love it because it's not a transactional business. And I've been in a sales role out of college that was very transactional.
What'd you do?
I did interest rate derivative sales. It was a Wall Street trading job, but I was on the sales side. Trading desk was right behind me. I was on the sales side. And my actual product was a flow product. I mean, very quick, over the counter. I mean, we could have, 30 trades in 30 minutes kind of deal.
Right.
Actually, more than that, the electronic side of the business was it's tracked by accounts, but I mean, there was hundreds of trades a minute versus there were other desks that were more structured and like very similar to what you said earlier. I was probably more like a pharma type of sales, very transactional.
Right.
Versus there was structured products desk, which had to be more analytical. You were walking clients through and educating them on certain things.
Right.
So I might have liked that a little bit more than what I was in, but this is much more to that structured products role.
Okay.
This is like what I'm in now is very, like you said, relationship heavy.
Right.
Building relationships. How can I help somebody? How can I find out what your pain point is? And what can we do to educate you, get you confident when you're out and you're, for your home financing.
Right.
Whether it's you're buying a home, you're refinancing, you're tapping into equity to pay something off, you're thinking about investing in real estate.
Right.
And then that's what it comes down to. It's like, can I have that person trust me to be the best person to educate them on their home financing needs? Right. And I mean, I fucking love it.
Yeah. Hey, you do great.
Yeah. Thank you.
You got a very obvious niche way of conducting business and building relationships. I think, you continue to compound on what you're doing, and it's gonna.
Yeah.
I congratulate you and tell you all the time, give you kudos. Like you stand out as far as your way of building relationships and what you do amongst a lot of mortgage people. So
thank you, bro.
You're right. It's a relationship business. It's top of mind.
Yeah.
Especially now, everyone wants to be a realtor.
Which is different than when you started.
Yeah.
I can't believe in 2018?
2018,
People were...
No. I mean, none of my friends were, and I know I have a big network of people just living in different, states, et cetera. Nobody was in real estate. So I'm like, I want to go into this. I'll get in young, make this a career, and I'll be the point man for this. But going back to, again, everybody knows a realtor. Everybody knows a realtor. But being top of mind in this business is what's most important. That's why, sending the print marketing, doing the posts on social media.
Yep.
Because what you want is when somebody, as you know, just in your business, is a big referral business. That's why relationships is so important, right?
Yes. When somebody's ready to make a decision.
Right.
You want to be the person they think of.
Yes. And if, I want everybody to be an advocate of my business. And the only way to do that is to be top of mind. Because, again, everybody knows probably 4 or 5 realtors for the most part, give or take. So when somebody says, oh, yeah, I want to sell my house, ka-ting, Jay, my friend Jay is a great realtor. Let me give you his contact. You'll be in great hands. And that's, how it starts on a lot of it. For me, I focused in where I lived when I started, which we talked about this in the very beginning. I live in a complex in Middlebury called Ridgewood, built by Toll Brothers. And I told my boss, I said, hey, I want to be the about guy in that area. He said, go for it.
In that complex?
In that
How big is the complex? Because it's not 10 homes.
No, it's about 320.
Yep.
So, and they range anywhere now from 500 to 750 a home. When I started, they were as low as 300 to 500.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I have a little different style because I come from the door knocking, the face-to-face business. I like doing that. So I will pick a target area. And I learned this, when I first started, I was like, I'm going to go door knocking. And, I'm so excited because I'm not scared of rejection. And my John's father said, what are you going to talk about? He's like, you don't know the industry.
Yeah.
Like, you're new. Like, if somebody says, tell me about the market here and there, I'm going to fumble. And so I went out and I did it for like a week. And I'm like, I need to learn a little bit more and be more well-rounded.
Yeah.
So I after about a year, I started going back and doing it heavy. And so what I do is I pick target areas because again, it's top of mind, it's being familiar. And, going and door knocking one area and never going back, you're probably not going to get much results. You might get the one off, but no one's sitting there waiting for you to knock on their door and say, oh, I want to sell my house right now. You're the guy. Like, it just doesn't work like that. But picking an area and continuing to go back, just like mailing. Like, if you mail an area and you just do it once, like, you might get something. But if you mail it every quarter over and over, you will get bites. And that's what I did in a couple different areas, but mainly in Ridgewood. And it took me a year to build up the clientele, being the professional in that Middlebury area. My business primarily where I cover is Northern New Haven County, I live right on, I call it the Tri-Bury or the Tri-County area. It's Litchfield County, Fairfield County, New Haven County. You know, Middlebury, Southbury is right on the border of the 3 counties. 3 different markets. So, and 3 great markets to live in too.
Yeah.
But, you know, just going back to just building, you know, business and my style, I target market a certain area, started door knocking, started mailing, and eventually I was a familiar face. People weren't scared to answer the door, or they see me out walking and they walk up to me and how's the market? And, you know, what could my house go for? Hey, do you mind coming in and just let me know what you think? So, yeah, I built a great career there. I've sold over 20 homes there.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. You know, on the market, some off the market. You know, people have said, hey, I'm, you know, not really super motivated, but if you know anybody that would want my unit, I'm like, yeah, I do. And I just bring them and, you know, broker the deal together. So I've sold, stuff on and off the market, but about 20 homes. I currently have 2 listed, a 3rd coming in there.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I love the area that I'm in because there's just a lot to offer in terms of those, again, the 3 county areas. Because you got, you know, Fairfield County, which is a beast, you know.
Yeah.
And being up in northern Fairfield County and like the Newtown, Monroe area, it's a different market than lower Fairfield
100%.
County, more affordable. Mm-hmm. And then you go into Litchfield County, which you have Woodbury, Connecticut.
Yep.
So Woodbury I focus on.
What is Woodbury, you were telling me the quaint? Or
It is I think it's the antique capital of the country.
Antique capital.
Yes.
Wow.
So it was when I grew up, that was like the farm town. It was nothing that you see there. We used to joke like, oh, those farm students, like, they have an ag program. Their school's an ag school.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were pop rock. Oh, screw that town. You know, and I will say that is such a up and coming, sought after town now.
Woodbury?
Yes.
That's where West Egg,
where you were just coming from this morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, they have developed that town so much. I think the value there, it's got the charming small town. Like, they don't even let a Dunkin' Donuts into there. Somehow a Dollar General got in there, but they've been getting into all these areas, But they won't let anything chain, no drive-throughs, nothing. But they built up the center of town. I call it Restaurant Row. They have, you know, Mix Prime, Good News Cafe, 1754 House, Dottie's Diner. You know, it's small, but it's charming. It's a great town. And then that takes you up into Litchfield County, up, you know, towards, you know, Morris and, you know, Bethlehem area. I think those are great markets right now, especially talking just about the market. We're still close to New York.
Yeah.
I think those are if you look at Connecticut in general, you know, the towns that are closer to New York are still growing exponentially. And that's just why I like that tri-county area, because if you want to be in Fairfield County, up in the Newtown, Monroe, Trumbull area, it's still more affordable. I mean,
100%.
What's crazy is if you look at the median sales price of Fairfield County, median, not average, it's $800,000.
Wow.
Yes. 800, and that 800,000, 824,000 for Fairfield County. Litchfield County, Greater Hartford County, and New Haven counties, all between 385 to 400 median sales price.
Whoa.
Yes. Single family.
If we took the average, do you know if Fairfield would be higher because of like the
Greenwich? I looked
like,
at $1 million. It's over $1 million. If you,
wow.
I don't look at averages.
No, because you have
offsets.
the anomaly of like the $50 million, $100 million
right.
homes.
So I did look at it. It's like 1.1 million.
Okay.
Yes, but you're at your average in Fairfield County as of August, and that's just numbers. You know, for that month is 824,000. But then you go right into Litchfield and New Haven and Greater Hartford. They're all between 380 to like 405.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it's a lot more affordable.
A lot more affordable.
I mean, 800. You put down, 5%. It's $40,000.
Right.
Your payment's probably gonna be like grand, 6 grand.
Right.
400, you put down 5%, 380, it's only 20 grand down. Payments like in today's market, probably like 2,800 to 3,000.
Right.
Maybe a little bit less.
Right.
Wow.
So you're getting, I say when COVID happened, that's when everybody rushed into real estate. And COVID didn't just change the real estate market. I say that COVID let the genie out of the bottle for work from home. People were starting to get into it,
Yeah.
These tech companies coming out, but it made the big push that it could be successful. And as a result of that, we always had people that came to Connecticut from New York, especially up in the Litchfield Hills area. That's their summer weekend house.
Yeah.
And then you get the people that have to commute to the city that are really down in like the Stamford, Greenwich area, right?
Yep.
New Canaan. But as a result of COVID, now you're getting a lot of people that they go to New York City, they have that 10-year New York experience, they want to start a family, they want to buy a home.
Yeah.
But what does $1 million get you in the city? Probably nothing.
Nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not outside the city in Westchester County, right?
Yeah.
The taxes are high. So they go, okay, well, we're working from home. I don't want to rent in this little shack anymore.
Yeah.
And because I'm here all day, well, we could go to Connecticut and, there's, certain areas that you could get, a mansion for $700,000. Depending where you
literally.
go. Literally, So the closer to New York, the higher the price. But I like that area of where I am because you get 3 different markets, and there's just a lot to offer in the pricing. It's not extremely high, but I'd say a third right now. About a third of the buyers are from New York.
Wow.
Yep.
They're still coming. That's crazy.
Still coming. Based on my transact, I'm more of a listing agent.
Yep.
So the offers that are coming in, a lot of New Yorkers. I mean, you're seeing it. I've seen the stats over the last couple months. I mean, 25% of the transactions are cash. Which is crazy because most people are credit rich and cash poor. And now you're getting, a quarter of the deals are going, being cash.
You're getting a lot of people selling their homes, taking the equity from that and using that. They're selling their home in New York for $1.5 million.
Yep.
Maybe they're walking away with $750,000.
Right.
And they're putting $700,000 or $600,000 down in Connecticut.
Okay.
That's what I think happens in that scenario when you get somebody from New York. Or anywhere, selling a house, ton of equity, and then buying cash elsewhere.
Yeah. So, it's, the market itself, Connecticut is still growing. We're up about 10% year to date.
Prices, you mean?
Prices.
Yeah.
Yes, prices are still growing. I mean, different
No
parts of the
supply.
country supply is low. I mean, numbers are
Nationally, if you go to Texas, Florida, Arizona, supply's through the roof. Prices are down.
right.
Just there's no supply coming from anywhere in Connecticut.
Yeah, the supply is still low. I think, I know that the really high multi-million-dollar homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer. The 3, 4, 5 million. I mean, I was looking in Litchfield County, and last year at this time, 18 had sold above 3 million. Now there was only like 9. So it's changing. I think the sweet spot. I mean, the average sales or the median sales price for a home in Connecticut is right around $400,000.
Yeah.
Overall. So that's a great market to be in.
Yeah, it's competitive.
I mean, 40% of the homes that are bought are first-time home buyers. So if a first-time home is around $400,000, you just have more potential people to work with.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the rates are coming down. I mean, what do you think as far as what's going to happen over the next 6 months? In your opinion, I mean, there's no crystal ball.
Yeah, of course. But if I were to guess what's going to happen, I think rates continue to move lower. Fed's cutting rates in the meeting next week.
Okay.
Probably going to cut rates in the next couple of meetings following that.
Okay.
Mortgage rates don't go down immediately after a Fed meeting, but it's already kind of being priced in.
Right.
So now, I mean, rates are high 5s, low 6s.
Right.
So if they get to mid 5s, people are going to start coming off the sidelines realizing that their payment, the people that bought at 7+ are going to start refinancing to lower payments.
Right.
Then you're going to have people that realize, okay, now at a 5.5% interest rate, maybe they could afford a, 400K home, where previously if it was 7%, it was only 340, 330, and they couldn't find what they want. Now it opens up their options.
Yep.
Yeah. Which will bring more buyers to the table.
And sellers too, because I mean, all these people that purchased
that are not moving because the payments are so low.
Yep. They got a 2.5 or 3.5 interest rate. They're not going to an 8, but they'll go to a 5. And it changes the game. So
it changes the game, and the good news is for us, for our businesses, transactions are good for our business.
Yes.
So it helps us in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, statistically speaking, if the rates go down, your prices could go up.
Yeah, that's what I think would happen.
If it's anything like what happened 3 years ago, I mean, I remember everyone was jumping in because they were going down in the 3s, the high 2s. Yeah. Then you had people that were like, oh, I'm going to wait for the market to crash. It's going to crash. And I remember talking to people, and they were like, it's almost like free money.
Oh, my God. Like, I wish I could have bought fucking 50 homes, 100 homes at 3%.
Yeah. No one saw that coming. I mean, do you think it'll ever get to 2.5? It would be in a major crisis.
Something bad would have had to happen.
Right.
And I don't know. I would full time try and just buy real estate, raise money and buy real estate.
Yeah.
If it got to 2.5, 3% again.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think the prices are probably going to go up again.
I think in Connecticut,
people are on the sidelines waiting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see a little bit more inventory come on because people will start selling to go into their next house. I think really over the last, because the rates were so high, people that wanted that bigger kitchen or that extra garage, it wasn't worth it for them, to move. I mean, obviously the people that were really moving were going through,
divorce, death, new children, whatever the 5 Ds are.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity, home sellers right now, I think if they're happy where they're living, great, don't move. But, if you're outgrowing your house, I'm advising them at this point, the rates are coming down. They're now more affordable. Get your house on the market.
Oh, if I'm a buyer, I'm trying to buy, lock in now. Over the next month or two, rates are going to even dip lower.
Right.
Oh, my God. And then you might be able to refinance in 6 to 12 months. I'd be trying to lock something in now because it's only going to get more expensive.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think, some areas for especially where I am, where people are purchasing are, Waterbury is blown up like crazy. That's not really my market, but I think as far as affordability in, Southbury is still reasonably affordable. Woodbury is reasonably affordable. Middlebury. Newtown is higher, but it's still affordable. You got Bethel, which is still reasonable. Brookfield. As you start going up into the northwestern part of Connecticut, it gets much more expensive because you're really close to the New York border, right? Same thing with going as you go more south to Fairfield County, right? It's just more expensive. I think I'm interested to see what's going to happen over the next 6 months with the election, with rates coming down. I do wonder, what do you think as far as the baby boomers in owning homes over the next 10 years? Or you think in 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to see an influx of inventory? The reason why I say this is people that I know that are in finance, they are aggressively going after people like you and me, who our parents are, you're a little bit younger, but our parents are in the baby boomer stage where could pass in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they're really anticipating an influx of money and wealth coming down to us. So I'm just curious on what your thought is, if we might see, are people going to want to carry their parents' homes? Are they just going to sell them? Are we going to have a huge uptick of inventory in 10 years or 15 years because these baby boomers aren't going to want these homes anymore? And they have a ton of the homes, especially the higher end homes. I think I read a stat the other day. They own 46% of the higher end homes. What's going to happen? Just anecdotally, what I've seen and what I think happens is when you've got somebody older that passes away,
if there's not one person in charge of what's going to happen with their estate and their assets, when you have somebody pass away and they own a $2 million home and taxes are 20 grand a year, 30, 40 grand a year.
Right.
And then you have 3 or 4 kids that are going to inherit that.
Right.
They are going to sell that
because
they're not going to carry the tax load. And the cost
Right.
of maintaining that home is expensive. Even for investment properties, because this is what I've done and seen, is you had one person that owned it and probably managed it and maybe ran a business. Now you have 3 people or 4 people that need to get on board, get on the same plan, and they all have their own kids and their own worries. They're like, I don't have time to manage it.
Right.
The amount of money it's going to make and then chop it up 3-4 ways isn't worth it.
Right.
Let's just sell it, get it off our plate, and forget it. So I think you'll get more supply from that.
Right.
That's what I think. I don't now how many times is that going to happen?
Right.
I don't know, but
I agree with you. I mean, I don't think people are going to want to carry the home, especially if it's
not going to be able to afford to carry the home, by the way, because these people that bought the $2 million home, they bought for $600K back in the 90s or 80s, or et cetera. So now with taxes, insurance, everything being much more, and typically I think from baby boomers to the next generation, I don't think kids are doing better than parents. I read. I don't know how many kids are going to be able to say, oh, I'll buy that home and move into it or maintain it.
Right.
Not going to be able to afford to do that. They've got to dump it. So that may happen.
Yeah.
Supply and demand at the end of the day. Is there enough people moving in that will be able to buy that to keep prices stable?
I think about that. Like, I mean, again, we're talking a decade
hypothetical,
but I think we're going to see a big amount of supply available in about a decade, But, who knows? I mean, people are having less children, than our parents were and, our generation. So, statistically, we could see a big change. Not anytime soon, I don't think, but...
And how quickly does it happen when it does happen? I don't know. But.
Yeah. I mean, some people's, parents are in their late 70s, some are early 60s, mid 50s. So, it's interesting. What else?
That's it. So blast having you on today, bro. I would love to do this again in a year and see what happened since we did this and how things have changed.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Update on you personally, update on the business, update on the market, especially after what we just talked about, and see if any of these things, post-election, and rates are supposed to go down. Where are we?
Right.
In the next summer.
I think
it'd be a blast.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of people right now, they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the rates, but they're also waiting to see what's going to happen with the election.
Biggest thing with real estate though is you can't wait. You can't time the market. You just got to buy and if you're ready to buy.
Right.
For primary residence, a little bit different than investment. Investment, just buy and sit on it in 30 years. Who cares?
Right. You're gonna see up and
down. You got to stomach that.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely different for people who are going to purchase a home and they know that they want to have a big family and they're going to outgrow it. Timing can change your life, and you could get in at a bad time where you have no other option but to stay there. You don't know. But right now, the way things are trending, it's great time to buy.
I'd be confident. Yeah,
I would be too. I mean, I think Connecticut overall was, our taxes were high. We were an affordable real estate.
Oh my God!
State
for the longest time.
I mean, other states.
Yeah, the whole metro, Jersey, New York was expensive. Even Boston metro.
Just since the crash in 08, I mean, markets doubled and tripled since then. Connecticut just slowly and boom, right? So that's why everyone's coming here. So I still think it's affordable. I recommend if you're, for people that are purchasing, especially if it's your first home, get out there, buy, rates are coming down. It's more affordable, for investors. Yeah. Hold on to your properties. That's the whole point of it.
You're not going to make money in year 1, 2, or 3. You got to think longer term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you got to also invest, CapEx into the property to get it ready. Whether you're doing a gut reno, whether you're doing cosmetic work, but then once you put the money in up front, you don't have to worry about the expenses over the next couple of years and kind of like set it and forget it.
Right.
So, dude.
Hey, it's a blast.
Oh, blast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Shane, thank you, bro. This was good.
Shane.